Making a stir fry at home is really simple when you use my formula. This is it. It is 1 pound of protein, 2 cups of veggies, and 1 cup of sauce. Now with that, there seems like the possibilities are endless. You've got beef, chicken, pork, shrimp. You have all kinds of different sauces that you can either make or just buy store-bought. I would say one of the most affordable, like buy it store-bought versus making at home, is gonna be anything in the Asian or international aisle. So don't be afraid to buy that sauce. And of course, veggies, whatever you wanna do. For today's teriyaki beef, I'm using broccoli and a little bit of red pepper for a little pop of sweetness that I think is gonna go really nicely with the teriyaki sauce and a beautiful pop of color. We're gonna prep our meat and our veggies before we move over to the stovetop in my large skillet. I don't have a wok, but I have one that's similar to a wok, and we're going to saute everything in there. But first we need to get this ready. I'm gonna add a little bit of sauce, just a half a cup or so, to the beef, just to get it coated. I also want it browning in that sauce. So whether you're using store-bought or homemade, you're gonna wanna do that. I'm also going to lop the bottoms off of all these stems off of this broccoli, just to make this a little more bite-sizable. When cutting veggies for a stir fry, you want a little bit of uniformity. That will help it cook at the same rate, if you will. You want everything to be nice and cooked evenly, and then these stems just take longer to cook and they're just not as delicious. And then I'm going to slice my bell peppers into pretty thin slices, I think, just because I want them to incorporate nicely with the beef slices and with this broccoli. This is a fresh broccoli. I want a little bit of crunch to the broccoli as it, once it's stir fried together with the red bell peppers. But I also want, it'll be nice and it'll turn into this beautiful bright green color as it cooks and sort of steams. Next is gonna be the red bell pepper, and I want this in thin slices. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you know I like to cut notch to notch of the bell pepper and cutting away the pithy core, which is exactly what we've done here. Ooh, that slid off nicely. You can compost that. You could, if you want to go crazy and garden and use those seeds. So I'm gonna cut these into, I want them to be bite-sizable, but I want them to be strips. So they're gonna look a little like this. So kind of smaller pieces, but sort of strippy, not chopped, not diced, but just perfect for, they're a little bit thicker. They're gonna be thick enough to cook alongside with the broccoli, but they're also gonna be bite-sizable. If you wanted to add a little heat to this, you could chop up a smaller pepper, a hot pepper to go, or a hot chili to go with this. But actually, I think I'm only gonna use the one. I don't think I need the other one. We're just gonna use the one. All right, so my veggies are ready. My meat has been marinating here for just a couple of minutes. Obviously, the more time that you can do that, you can cover this with foil or plastic wrap, put it in the fridge, let it marinate for 30 minutes, an hour. The longer, the better. The longer, the more time the flavor has to infuse into the meat. So for a stir fry, I usually buy the meat that's already sliced thin, but if you wanted to buy a flank steak and slice it yourself, you're gonna do that, slice across the grain, and then you can marinate about sizes about this big. If you wanted to cut this down even further into truly bite size, you can, but I think this is gonna be perfect. You could also do kind of an angled slice and get more of a shaved beef if you were gonna slice your own. Price point wise, it's about the same to buy the pre-sliced versus not. Just look for the beef strips for stir fry at your store. The reason that we're cutting our beef into thin strips is so that it cooks quickly and evenly in the super high heat that we're going to get going on the skillet. Here we have a nice tall skillet. This is not a wok, it's just a taller skillet. Any like 12-inch skillet that's got a little bit of 1 or 2 inch like rim on it is gonna be exactly what you need for this. You wanna have a little bit of height, especially if you wanna go like flipping it around, you sure can. The first thing we're gonna do is add about 2 tablespoons of oil and we are going to heat this up. The oil will start to thin out, and when we start to smell it and see that smoke, when it's reaching its smoke point, which is probably about 450 degrees, we're then going to add in the beef and the marinade and saute that together for a couple of minutes. The great thing about my formula in terms of 1 pound protein, 2 cups veggies, 1 cup sauce is it goes in that order with cooking as well. So we have our oil nice and heated up here. We're gonna add the pound of protein with a little bit of that sauce and marinade that we put together earlier right into this hot skillet. One of my favorite sounds, friend, one of my favorite sounds. Just gonna let this, I'm gonna toss this to get the beef evenly distributed in the skillet, and then I'm gonna let it sit for just a minute. I do want a little bit of that caramelization to happen on the meat, and it's also gonna happen with the sauce because there is a little bit of sugar in this sauce. We do need to be careful not to overheat this sauce because it does have a little bit of sugar in it. Of course, if you're not using if you're using a sauce that doesn't have any sugar, you'd be less concerned about that kind of burning or over caramelization. But if that does happen, reduce the heat and continue to stir that around to keep that sweeter sauce from overcooking. You can see that we've browned on one side, so we're going to just turn these guys all over and let them cook another minute or two. We do want to get these mostly cooked through. We will be cooking them again here in a minute, but we do want to get them mostly cooked through at this stage. Okay, our beef is cooked through enough. Again, it will cook for a little longer after we reintroduce everything else. So I'm just going to transfer the beef and maybe a little bit of the sauce onto this plate right here. And I want a little sauce to stay in the skillet because I want the veggies to cook in that sauce, and then I don't have to add more oil. Of course, you could add more oil, and all of that sauce will get reintroduced. So from here, I'm gonna add in the broccoli first because that'll take a little bit longer to cook. Just gonna stir this up, let that start to cook, and then I am gonna add the bell peppers. The bell peppers have a little bit more liquid. They will release a little bit of liquid that will help also with cooking and the steam for our broccoli. So we're just going to toss this for 2 to 3 minutes. That the broccoli will start to turn kind of a bright green color, and then we'll reintroduce the beef. So protein, veggies, sauce, and beef will be our last step. So the broccoli has turned a nice bright green color. You can see it's taking on a little color from the sauce that was in there. The bell peppers are starting to soften up a little bit. So I think it is time to reintroduce our beef and add in the sauce. I have my trusty spinella. I love it. It's great for tossing. Of course, you can see it's just scraping off all this delicious beef teriyaki sauce. And then we're just going to toss all this back together. 1 pound of protein, 2 cups of veggies, and you already know the answer, 1 cup of sauce. We're just going to eyeball that. There should be a little bit left in this jar. And then we are going to toss away and let this simmer and soak together for a couple of more minutes. This gorgeous sauce is starting to bubble already. We're going to toss all this together, make sure that our beef is all the way cooked through. Give it a couple more minutes to cook here with the veggies and the sauce. Incorporate all those flavors really nicely. One of the advantages of a store-bought sauce like this teriyaki sauce is that it's already the right consistency. It's a little bit thicker. If you do make your own sauce and you go to add it and it doesn't have quite the right consistency, you can make what's called a cornstarch slurry. So you're going to add a tablespoon of cornstarch and 1 to 2 tablespoons of water in a small bowl. Just use a little fork and incorporate that together to make that kind of slurry, if you will. And then you'll pour and scrape that in here. The reason that we add it into water first is to get it into that sort of smoother consistency. If you were to add cornstarch directly in here, even sprinkling it, it will clump together and then you'll end up with a bite of cornstarch in your mouth, and that's a no thank you from me, and I imagine from you as well. So that's why we make a slurry. We do the cornstarch and water in a small bowl, mix it up, then incorporate it in here. Stir it all the way through into your sauce and then give it a couple of minutes on a low heat to simmer and thicken up your sauce. You can adjust the consistency by using less cornstarch, more water, depending on how you want your end result to be. Okay, I have my trusty trivet here. I don't usually use this on my countertop, but we do like to do this sort of family style, so I'll put this on the table and we'll do this family style where we pass bowls. I might have served up the rice, but then we'll pass bowls around and serve this up at the table. So I have here fake out, take out white rice. You can go back and watch that video. You should find it here on the Learn to Cook on a Budget with Erin playlist. And then I'm going to spoon in some of this meat and veggies and sauce directly on here, and then I'm gonna scoop up a little extra sauce. That's another thing I love about the spinella. It has a little bit of a dip to it, so you can sort of spoon and drizzle everything right there on top. So beautiful, so delicious. Look at how colorful and pretty this is. You could eat this just like this. You could top it with a little sesame seed. God, just so magical. Also, a little green onion would be really delicious. Slice up a little green onion, add a little pop of onion in there since we didn't add any onion with the other veggies. This is teriyaki beef and broccoli, my friend. It's so delicious. I want you to remember that formula: a pound of protein, 2 cups of veggies, and a cup of sauce. Here's a quick reminder, you can find a lot of the goodies and gadgets that I use here in my own kitchen available in our store. I have them available for you because they're my favorite and I want them to become your favorite too. Today we featured the spinella and the trivet. If you found this helpful, we have lots of other cooking lessons here on the channel and the Learn to Cook on a Budget playlist. We also are releasing new episodes weekly at noon Central Time on Wednesdays, so be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.